Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. Meanie. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Malik.
Malik!
Yeah.
Hello. It's been a while. How have you been?
Oh, I've been all right. I mean, we had some technical difficulties when we were starting this out, but I think it'll be fine. How are you doing, Hyle?
I'm a little bit better. I mean, look, last time I recorded was with Jeff during our Not E3 Streamaganza, and he was claimed by Satan or some Dark Lord, to be determined, but, you know, a little technical difficulties, a little faulty microphone here or there, pales in comparison to what the last Kongversation experience was. But no, we're here for a Kongversation mini because we are discussing one of the weirder stories to have broken this year. It concerns Donkey Kong, it concerns Diddy Kong, and it concerns a game that's 23 years old. Now, Malik, I believe the last time you were on the Kongversation was for the big episode about Banjo and Kazooie coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, correct?
Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. All 4 hours of it.
It wasn't yesterday. It was almost a year ago. Not quite, but
crazy.
That was a big episode because it was the fulfillment of a long-time wish and desire for Banjo and Kazooie to be in Smash Ultimate. This episode, I brought you back because it's pretty much the same. It's a character who we've long wanted in a particular game, debuting in that game, but not through DLC or anything, because there is no DLC for this game because it is 23 years old, and the appearance is of a dubious sort, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
There's no clear consensus on what the hell is happening here. But I am speaking about Diddy Kong being in Mario Kart 64. Now, clarifying time. Make some clarifying statements, because if those of you who listen to this podcast who don't follow along on Twitter or don't read news on dkvine.com, you might not know what the hell I'm talking about. And you're like, what do you mean Diddy Kong is in Mario Kart 64? Mario Kart 64. He debuted in Mario Kart in Double Dash. We all know how that happened because Donkey Kong Jr. was going to be Donkey Kong's partner in Mario Kart Double Dash, you know, canon be damned. And then the buyout happened, and then they decided at the 11th hour, hey, we need to put Diddy in the game as his partner. And there's still remnants of Donkey Kong Jr. in the game. If you look in the stadium crowd of, was it Waluigi Stadium? Yeah, you can
Warriors.
see
Waluigi Stadium.
You can see the little models of Donkey Kong Jr., who in this case, they're just filling out the audience as just unnamed Kongs from Donkey Kong Island, but the model is clearly Donkey Kong Jr. And yeah, so if you look in the game code, you can still find remnants of files being labeled Donkey Kong Jr. So it was going to happen. We actually dodged a bullet because of the Microsoft buyout of Rare, which, you know, I know a lot of people who listen to this show might not be happy about that still, but that is in one way it benefited Donkey Kong, is that Nintendo started using Diddy Kong, because there's been this long-standing idea that Nintendo didn't want to use Diddy Kong because they viewed him as Rare's creation, Rare's baby. And so they had this kind of gentleman and gentlewoman agreement that, okay, we can use Donkey Kong, your Donkey Kong, all we want, because, you know, Miyamoto created Donkey Kong. Diddy Kong, this big, wildly huge, successful character that you've created under the Donkey Kong IP, he's yours. He's yours to use. They even, you know, offered him essentially to Rare in their first self-published game, Diddy Kong Racing. Wasn't always going to be a Diddy Kong game, but Rare still self-published it. And of course, for more on that, listen to the recent episode that Jeff and I did where he wasn't claimed by Hellspawn, where we discuss the legal complications of Diddy Kong Racing. But anyway, all that being said, this has been the chronology for the last 2 decades, right? Donkey Kong fans, hardcore Donkey Kong universe fans, understand the way this all shook out. Diddy only appeared in rare games up until 2003, when he actually debuted in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, which edged out Double Dash in the release schedule, but Double Dash was essentially going to be his first. So Malik, I don't know how much of this story you've been following, but it seems it seems, or I mean, this might be a bit of a Rorschach test. It might be one of the, those ink blots where you're just seeing what you want to see, but it looks like there is a good chance that Diddy Kong has actually been hiding in plain sight in a cameo in Mario Kart 64. And you don't sound convinced.
Well, like you said, it's like one of those ink blot things where it's like, I'm looking at it and it does kind of look like Diddy Kong, but I'm not sure what I want to believe. I want to believe that Diddy is in the game because that would be cool, but I mean, you could look at it at a completely different angle, and I wouldn't blame you for it,
Okay, yeah. This broke like a couple weekends ago, and when I say broke, this has been a couple months in the making, picking up steam as far as reaching the broader Donkey Kong fan community. It first started. It's traced to a post on Reddit. In Reddit's gaming subreddits it was posted by user_5098213. So
what a username.
I mean, that's
that one.
My favorite user on Reddit at the moment. So I will remember it. I will get it tattooed. But they posted a screenshot of the yellow bus, and I've always thought of it as a school bus, but I don't actually think it's a school bus. Looking at it from the front and the side, it's not really a school bus. Discussing this with some of our UK compatriots, they claim it's not a bus at all, it's a coach. And I'm like, well, what's the difference? And they're like, well, there's very specific terminology between a coach and a bus in the UK. Maybe that's true also in Canada, Malik. I don't know, but
I'm not sure. I don't even really know what a coach is.
Yeah, exactly. A coach is something that's like drawn by horses, or it's a character in Connect Sports Rivals.
A sitcom from the 80s.
From the 80s and the 90s that they were actually going to revive when they started like reviving everything. And the Coach revival fell through, which has to be devastating for Coach fans. I really feel for the Coach fans. They almost got their big moment. Like, yes, Coach is coming back. And
it's their Donkey Kong racing.
They're always going to be 20 years from now on, the Coach cast or whatever.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, they're going to be talking about, remember when we almost got the Coach revival? And I feel for them. I have nothing in common with the Coach fandom, assuming there is a Coach fandom, except that we're fans of something, and I know what it feels like to be a fan of something. So that's why I get very empathetic towards any fans of any property, unless it's, something like, if you're a fan of Mein Kampf. If you're a fan of Mein Kampf, then fuck you. I don't care what you think. But if you're a fan of Coach, I'm going to assume you're not a Nazi. Anyway, Malik, my point is that some people call this a coach, but here in the States, we're a simple folk. We just call them all buses, right? I don't care how it's shaped. I don't care what its purpose is for. If it's this long tube on the highway that gets you from point A to point B, then that's a bus, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this yellow bus, I've long studied it because I've always been fascinated by the text on the back of it, on the bumper. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a license plate or something, but I've never been able to decipher what the characters or what language this even is. When I was a kid, I just assumed they were like Japanese characters. Looking at it closer as an adult, I don't think that's the case. It almost looks, I don't know. I'm not a linguist. I don't know much in the way of this for me to sound intelligent, but I've studied the back of the bus. I'm like, what language is this? Are these just dummy characters? Well, that's not really what Mario Kart 64 does for other things like signs or anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
My point is, I've been looking at the wrong side of the bus for 23 years because, so user underscore 5098213. This was like 2 months ago, back in April.
Mm-hmm.
Posted a screenshot of Yoshi, and like, no wonder this thing gained steam for a while, because Yoshi, I mean, you got to play as Donkey Kong for the fandom to get it, give their attention to something. But Yoshi's driving up behind the bus / coach, and then from the side you can make out the driver, and behind the driver you can also see passengers, right? But and the passengers all seem to like look like Alfred Hitchcock's like type silhouettes. They seem to have trays in front of them, like you would on a coach type bus, right?
Yeah.
So the level of detail, despite these being flat sprites, it's pretty easy to read, especially on things like the Wii U Virtual Console, because that's where I believe these images are from. That's where or that might be an emulator too, but it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not playing like natively on an N64, which makes it a little bit muddier, a little blurrier, then the crispness of these sprites is in full effect. Anyway, so the driver, right? He gets closer, and then he provides a dead-on shot of it and a comparison render to really sell the point. And it looks like from my vantage point and from the vantage point of a lot of people online, it looks like a small figure in a baseball cap, like barely able to reach the wheel, right? Like clutching the wheel, but with with its very tiny body like hanging on. And behind him, and I'm just going to start referring to it as him, behind him, we see a long, skinny curvature, which more often than not is seen as a tail. A tail one would see on a monkey not unlike Diddy Kong. And when you look at it, the full thing, baseball cap, tail, small stature, barely able to hold on to this big bus steering wheel. It's Diddy Kong. It's Diddy Kong's silhouette driving a bus. And so this was on Reddit, got 223 upvotes, 10 comments, not a lot of traction as far as Reddit goes, right?
Yeah.
Not terrible, but something like this you would expect the world to be set on fire for. And then it was June 4th. Twitter user Dylanirus, might be botching the pronunciation of that, at Dylanirus. Dylanirus. They tweeted actually the same images that Reddit user 5098213. Almost forgot it. What they and they might be the same person. That's unconfirmed. But anyway, they tweeted it, right?
Right.
And that's when it really gained traction. 2 days later, or maybe like a day later, but late at night, somebody added me in the original Twitter thread, and then I saw it. Then I retweeted it, and that's kind of where it blew up as far as our community goes. I know a lot of people in Platonic started retweeting it, and before long, like, everybody was talking about this that weekend.
Yeah.
Diddy Kong in Mario Kart 64. I know our friend Josh, the Geek Critique, he immediately jumped on his, I think, N64 and confirmed it. He was like, it's there, it's true. Because that's what everybody was thinking. I was like, this is Photoshop, this is just a hoax. How could this have gone under the radar for 23 years? And I jumped on my Wii U Virtual Console, which is the easiest way for me to get screenshots from Mario Kart 64 without resorting to, illegal means.
Right.
And I drove right next to the bus. I let the bus pass me as it went by. I got a clear shot, and it's exactly like the screenshots on Reddit and Twitter say. Spot on. Even like I was astounded when I saw it with my own eyes. So, Malik,
Yes.
is this Diddy Kong in Mario Kart 64? Did he commandeer a bus? there's so many questions. Like people are throwing out these theories. Wait, was Diddy a bus driver in a Mushroom Kingdom in 1997? It's like, well, he's a child. I don't think so. Was he like prepping for Diddy Kong racing? Well, okay. So let's rewind a bit, and we'll explain. I'll get into how this could have come about. Right.
Okay.
We'll get into alternate theories about what we might be looking at.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the
got
fun
things to say about that.
Okay, then we'll get into the fun fan theories about why Diddy might have been doing this. So, could Diddy have been like sneaked into Mario Kart 64 in this cameo Easter egg? It's possible, and there would have been a good reason for it, because lest we forget that Rare is actually credited in the end credits for both Mario Kart 64 and Mario Kart Super Circuit, because they both use the same 3D model of Donkey Kong. His sprite character is credited as coming from, quote, Rare UK, end quote. So, it's believed that Rare did do the model of Donkey Kong. This is the first time that the modern Donkey Kong Country Donkey Kong appeared outside of a Rare game. And whether like the Mario Kart 64 team asked them or whatever, or if it's just like some nicety, or if it was actually like, hey, we want you to do it because you're the Donkey Kong experts, whatever. They made the model for Mario Kart 64. They got it in the credits. And they would do this again when Banjo and Kazooie were in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with Banjo Kazooie. They actually made the model of Banjo and Kazooie and gave that Sumo all the assets like that were needed to complement them. So,
oh, cool.
Rare's done this like in their history. Whenever one of their characters appears in a game, a racing game, they go ahead and make the model for it. So, Mario Kart 64 though is the only time they did it for Donkey Kong outside of a Rare game, and so the thinking is, and it's actually a theory that I agree with, because I am on the side of this being Diddy Kong, Malik. And
well, of course,
that was a long road for me to get there, though. That took all weekend for me to finally decide, hey. Like well, okay, it took me about a day, but I was fighting this because I was like, no, there has to be another explanation. But the more I sat on it, the more I thought about it, because I didn't want to believe this, because this is 23 years of knowledge down the drain. This is one of the coolest, if this is true, this is one of the coolest Easter eggs. Diddy driving the bus and Toad's Turnpike, like, that would have been catnip to young Hyle, and young Hyle just completely missed it because he was trying to read the back of the bus, trying to read whatever text was on the bumper versus what was happening up front. And that's humiliating as the co-founder and editor-in-chief of DK Vine. That's just an ultimate disgrace. But the more I sat with it, the more I was like, yeah, you know what? I really think this is what that is, because they could have sneaked Diddy's silhouette in as a little Easter egg, a little nod towards Rare, maybe a thank you for providing a 3D model. And like where this might fall apart is if we look at footage of the game before Donkey Kong was added, because Donkey Kong originally wasn't going to be in Mario Kart 64. It was going to be Kamek. Right. Kamek actually replaced Koopa Troopa, and Wario replaced Donkey Kong Jr., but then along the way, they decided to replace Kamek with the adult modern Donkey Kong. You can argue if he's Junior or not, but that's not what this is about.
Yeah, no, let's not go down that hole.
So basically, Donkey Kong, or a Donkey Kong, lost his spot to Wario, but then Wario bumped the person replacing Koopa Troopa. So anyway, my point is, like, if there's footage of Toad's Turnpike with the bus driver, with the silhouette out there in the pre-Donkey Kong build, then this theory's out the window. But I have so far not seen that. I've not seen any evidence of this in a pre-Donkey Kong build. So the theory stands that this was a little thank you to Rare. Oh yeah, you did the Donkey Kong for us. We're gonna sneak your baby in here as a driver of the bus. It seems like something Nintendo would do, and it would be within the boundaries of what Nintendo would view as permissible in their culture of, well, we can't use this character because we are not the studio or team responsible for it, and it would be in bad taste for us to use it without permission. In this case, though, that would be like skirting a line as an homage and a little hidden treat. Obviously so hidden that it took fans 23 years to discover. So anyway, like that's what I'm thinking. That's the way this would have come about. And keep in mind too that this Mario Kart 64 came out. It was in development and finished and on store shelves before Diddy Kong was ever added to Diddy Kong Racing. Like, it was Pro-Am 64 at the time. So it was Timber's game, and Diddy Kong was only added come E3 97. And then especially when Banjo-Kazooie was delayed to 98 and would miss the holiday 97 window, Diddy Kong Racing really came into fruition then as we know it. So anyway, all that being said, like I mentioned that it's a Rorschach test. And Malik, I want to hear what you think we could actually be looking at instead of Diddy Kong.
Now, again, I want to believe this is Diddy Kong as well, because like you said, that'd be really cool. But for some reason, I think it may also just be like a regular bus/coach driver. And you know why I think that? It's like, so I see the windy, I see the tail, or the silhouette of the tail, and I thought to myself, you know, that could be a seat, but what kind of lumbar support is that? That's terrible for your back. That's not going to be good for anybody. But The one thing that's striking me is the fact that the silhouette, like, Diddy has like an oval-shaped mouth that like protrudes from his face, but this silhouette doesn't. That's the one thing where I'm like, this may, or I have my reserves.
Okay, well, the comparison render that was being bandied about on Reddit and Twitter, that one, it's a little misleading because the render is from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. So it's from 2014. To really get a good idea of what they're going for, we have to rewind. We have to go back to 1996 when this game was in development, and the renders of Diddy that existed then. And this was still very early on. And it's also worth pointing out this was before Nintendo adopted this standardized look for much of their cast, especially the Mario and Donkey Kong cast, where like the look would be basically unchanging from game to game, minus flourishes or smaller details like in Smash, or like, you know, Tropical Freeze, they have a higher level of fur. It's still essentially the same model. But back in the mid-90s, it was a lot more loosey-goosey. It was a lot more, you can reinterpret this design for each game, just so long as it hews closely to what should be the standardized look. So that's why you got all these like weird looking Marios around this time. You compare Super Mario RPG with Super Mario 64 with Mario Party. I mean, they're all vastly different. Yeah. The Diddy in this one, for one thing, it's a silhouette. It's a silhouette, not even a 3D model. It is a 2D flat sprite silhouette. So barely any detail except this just shading. So you say that the chin isn't protruding enough, and I've also heard that the cap isn't long enough. Like the brim on the cap isn't sticking out enough.
I can kind of look past that one, but yeah, when I think Diddy, I think of like I got a Diddy Kong plush staring at me in the face right now, and he's got like a huge mouth. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm looking back at renders from the original Donkey Kong Country, and Diddy does have like the mouth, but his chin is much smaller than it was post Rare. They really like for him and Donkey Kong, really they've added a bit of a bulbous underside to their mouth holes. But if you look at the side renders of Diddy Kong from the original Donkey Kong Country, his mouth is more in line with what we see here. Now, it's still sticking out, obviously, but the chin is a lot more accurate. And I'm not saying this is like validates my argument at all. I'm just saying that when you actually factor in the time and how like Nintendo only had Rare's own renders to operate off of, there's some leeway here.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest argument I've heard against it being Diddy is that that's not a tail, that's a curved bus seat. But as you said, like I've never seen a bus seat that looks this painful. This looks like a torture device. If this tail were a bus seat, for one thing, it's way too thin to be a bus seat. This is something more akin to one of those ergonomic office chairs that you try out in Office Max, and you're like, no, that's not good. That's not good. I don't want that. But as a bus seat, and especially a bus driver seat, those are always universally flat. And I've looked up pictures of this on Google Images more than I would care to admit, and I have not found one that matches this monstrosity. So, because look, I don't want this just to be Diddy Kong for my own purposes. I want this to be Diddy Kong because if it's not, then that bus driver, like, I don't even want to think what his back is like 23 years after doing this commute day in and day out. That would be awful.
Yeah, as someone who has scoliosis, this does not. Every time I look at that, it's like, oh man, that's not good.
Yeah.
I gotta sit straight just thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm somebody who has to routinely slide down the flight of stairs in his home just to relieve the pressure in his back because of the heavy backpacks I wore in middle and high school. So I hope for the bus driver's sake that he was actually a beloved monkey sidekick / video game hero. So the tail too looks like it is attached to the figure. If you study it, it looks like it connects at the bottom. And the way the posture is of this figure too, it looks like it's a tiny. From my perspective, it looks like it's a man of tiny stature, who is like he's propping himself up on the wheel with his arms, and his legs are like dangling below the window somewhere, but he's like maybe standing up on the seat itself, trying to like steer the wheel. But he's a short man. He's a short man, and a little baby bitty monkey boy, and he can't quite muster it. So, but like I said, it's hard to really have a clear, definitive answer on this because it is a flat 2D sprite of a silhouetted character from a game that's 23 years old. And I noticed Mario Wiki refuses to take a stance on this because the Toad Turnpike page has not been updated to reflect the Diddy Kong controversy. So
I saw something on the Mario Wiki not too long ago when this news broke, like going to Diddy Kong's page, like they actually mentioned
maybe on
it.
Diddy Kong's page, but this is the kind of thing that would also launch a wiki editing war where people go back and forth over it.
It's like, just lock that right now.
Yeah. So there's not a clear consensus among the fan base. For what it's worth, I've had long talks with much of the DK Vine staff, and we're all in agreement. Like, even Cameron, who is our resident artist in chief, he says, I can't see it being anything but Diddy Kong. At the very least, it's supposed to be a monkey wearing a baseball cap. And then I've heard, like, well, could it be the Ukiki from Super Mario 64 that steals Mario's hat? Well, if that were the case, then that Ukiki should be wearing a hat that's much closer to Mario's hat. And, we can talk all night about whether or not this hat is the same model as Diddy Kong's baseball cap, but it's certainly not Mario's cap either. And if anything's going to be on model in Mario Kart 64, I would imagine it be the cap that's already in the game on like 3 of the characters. So I'm going to say it's not the Ukiki that stole Mario's hat in Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
That's not even in consideration. This is a monkey in a baseball cap to me and to much of the DK Vine staff, and that could only mean one character. Okay, so now I'm also open to being wrong on this. Okay, like, I ran the news story on DK Vine, and the headline said definitively, Diddy Kong is in Mario Kart 64. This is not a joke. Maybe it's a little clickbaity on my part. Maybe I was just desperate for the clicks and the traffic. But you know what? I'm standing by that headline because I really don't see any other rationale behind this. It's not a seat. It's not a curvy seat. Ergo, it's a tail. Ergo, it's a monkey. Ergo. The question, though, comes up. Okay, let's play along and say it's Diddy Kong. What the hell is Diddy Kong doing driving a bus/coach in Toad's Turnpike? What's going on there?
Yes, exactly. Why is he here? I'm again, I want this to be Diddy, but why in such a weird place? You would think that the right thing to do would be to put him in DK's Jungle Parkway, right? But why is Diddy on Toad's Turnpike of all places?
Well, DK's Jungle Parkway, there's evidence that wasn't actually going to be a Donkey Kong stage. That was after the fact, like much of Donkey Kong's tracks usually are in Mario Kart, save for when Retro Studios co-develops it, he gets assigned a track after the fact. Oh, that's a jungly track. That would be perfect for Donkey Kong. But that's why there's a...
Stupid.
Well, that's why there's a steam riverboat in there that has nothing to do with Donkey Kong. It even says Mario on it, but, whatever.
He's taken over.
Yeah.
It's in his jurisdiction now.
Also, because if they're not going to put a, Diddy Kong in the game, because there are no spectators in Mario Kart, like in the crowds in Mario Kart 64, they're just little blurry, colored dots to represent the crowd in things like Wario Stadium. It's not until we get to the GameCube that you can actually see little figures, denizens of the Mushroom Kingdom or Donkey Kong Island bouncing around. So the only place you could stick Diddy Kong if you wanted a Diddy Kong cameo was one of the drivers in Toad's Turnpike. So silhouette. So that would be the reason why they stuck him here. But what could be the lore reason we concoct after the fact to soothe our troubled, hurting brains? And when you look at the time that Mario Kart 64 came out, because it came out between Donkey Kong Country 3 and Donkey Kong Land 3. So this is the height of, or just past the peak of the classic Donkey Kong Country era, before Diddy Kong Racing and then the launch of the Donkey Kong universe with, Banjo and Conquer getting games, and then Donkey Kong 64 giving us another Donkey Kong game again. But This is when Donkey and Diddy were inseparable. I mean, the plot of Donkey Kong Country 3, which came out mere months before this, even had them going on vacation together and getting abducted and thrown into chaos and becoming his brain. It's a weird plot, but that's what happens. So if Donkey Kong is going to the Mushroom Kingdom to race go-karts, who's to say Diddy Kong wouldn't tag along and wouldn't be just off to the side, rooting him on, cheering for him? Of course he would. They're best friends at this point. They're partners. They're adventuring partners. So if Donkey Kong goes on an adventure, Diddy Kong's not going to sit that out at this point in time. So
yeah, and even if he has to leave his girlfriend to do it, just like, hey, we're going to the Lost World and we're not telling you.
Yeah. I mean, this very thing comes back to bite them in the ass in Donkey Kong Land 3 when Dixie beats them to the Lost World. Well, actually, K. Rool beat them all to the Lost World. But anyway, their inseparable broness eventually becomes an issue in his relationship with Dixie. Point being, Diddy is kind of the sort where in this part of his character, he's very much more so take action than he was in the original Donkey Kong Country. So he's not just going to be like meek and, just the quiet sidekick. If he sees a chance to help his buddy, he's going to take it. And, he's not going to help him cheat so much, but if the opportunity
he's going to eliminate
arises,
the competition.
Yes. So if there is a track where, they're driving through an early morning commute. I always took Toad's Turnpike on the N64 to be early morning and not late at night. I don't know why. I think I just like the idea of it being like the sun's coming out or the sun's rising and you still have stars in the night sky versus the sun is setting and it being
the music
hour.
Really sets that mood too.
Yeah, it feels more like an early morning kind of like that kind of thing. And you don't see enough early morning sunrise stuff. It's always sunset or the onset of night. So I like thinking of it in reverse terms. Like these people are just starting their day. They're not all tired. Like they're drinking their morning coffee while plumbers and dinosaurs and princesses, go through their lane.
Of course.
Yeah. So anyway, what if Diddy Kong says, "This is my chance"? He commandeers a bus and he purposely tries to run down Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Wario, and Bowser. Now, granted,
that.
The race gets hot and heavy. Sometimes he'll accidentally hit Donkey Kong too. That's what makes it fair.
I mean, this is before he started. This is before his kart racing debut a year later. So, he's still getting used to driving.
It's like the first time he ever drove. He's still a child.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a license, but he's in this strange foreign land, this Mushroom Kingdom, and he's thinking, you know what? No rules apply here. What are they going to do? Arrest me? They don't.
Schmools of the road.
They don't have his fingerprints on record. He has no social security number in the Mushroom Kingdom. If he gets pulled over, he's a non-entity. He can just disappear into the early morning. So,
we didn't find him for 23 years.
Yeah, right? Like the cops never knew. The traffic police were never the wiser. And all those people on that bus, they never once complained. Which says to me that Diddy got them to their final destination. So that's my theory, Malik. Where does DK Vine stand? I think we're very pro Diddy being in Mario Kart 64, so much so that we're going to be updating our character appearance list for Diddy.
I laugh in agreement, by the way. This is awesome.
I look, nothing. If somebody on the Mario Kart 64 staff comes forward and says, no, that was never the intention.
Which they never will,
then we would, issue a correction. We would say, we got carried away and all of the hoopla, the hype. We're going to bow out now. Sorry about that. In the future, we won't make the same bit of journalistic malpractice. But I don't think we're going to have to issue a correction. I think this is definitely confirmed. And look, this isn't even the first time. Well, it is the first time, but it isn't the first time that we were aware of that we've had a weird cameo in a DKU racer. Banjo Pilot has Espresso the Ostrich in it.
Now, isn't that just like, oops, we forgot to take this out of the Diddy Kong Pilot?
No, I think it's more like, do you think Nintendo will care if we leave this in? No, they'll never notice. Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, probably.
But I mean, that's still like, you could make the case. Well, that can't be Espresso because Nintendo didn't give the go ahead. I don't care if Rare made the game and it was originally Diddy Kong Pilot, and of course that was originally Espresso. But no, that's Espresso.
It's Espresso.
It's Espresso, and this is Diddy Kong. And by the way, you know my fanon for why that's Espresso in Banjo Pilot? It's because Diddy rode Espresso to root on his friend Banjo in his kart racing, or in this case, plane racing. So I've already established in my headcanon that Diddy makes a habit of this. He goes on to root. He goes to these races to root on his friends. And, you know, if he leaves a spare ostrich laying about, or if he takes over a bus, you know, that's just collateral damage for his moral support.
I was going to say, so do you think Diddy is hidden somewhere in Banjo Pilot? And I know it was Diddy Kong Pilot before, but maybe Diddy is like intentionally hidden somewhere.
You know, I can't write off anything at this point. If Diddy can be in Mario Kart 64, I think we need to scour our old games and look for Easter eggs that have been long undiscovered. I mean, K. Rool could have been in Smash Brothers from the very start, Malik. we could all look foolish.
Swanky could be in Donkey Konga too.
Yeah, no. Even that couldn't get me to pick that game back up.
This has been a File 2 production.
Qué rico.